So a lot of people know me because I do a lot of presentations, and they know that I love marketing, love associations, I love to run, and I actually love reading magazines, I love food and wine, I have all these passions, and I love to look for new ideas. What they don't realize is actually as I look back, some of the best ideas I got were when I was a photojournalist. So I spent 5 years as a photojournalist out of college, and as I work on a lot of different projects, as I've worked with all different types of clients, those ideas came in handy. I worked in New York, in Ogden, Utah, Gary, Indiana, the Indiana Daily Student, the Topeka Capital Journal, and at the Chicago Tribune. And I was lucky to work with 3 amazing mentors. One was Greg Heitzler. He shot this photo of Muhammad Ali, and he tried to teach me to light, which I couldn't do. And he said, Sherry, don't ever lose your enthusiasm. That fire is what lights your pictures. And that was a great lesson I learned about that, about passion. My next mentor was Eddie Adams. He won a Pulitzer for shooting this photo from the Vietnam War. And he said, and as we worked together, he said, you know, passion is great, but you can't let your emotions interfere with achieving your mission. My third mentor was Doug Benedict, and he worked for years as a photojournalist and then switched to wedding photography. It's not your typical wedding photograph. He said, be inspired by others, but find your own vision. Really important if you want to compete. Now, I shot that photo of Mr. T. It was one of my first pictures I took, and I was in college and didn't know much at all. And I learned you can't let other people intimidate you, even if you're the new person at the table, even if you don't know a lot. That picture ran in People magazine, so it was kind of exciting. This photo I shot up in Michigan when they won the NCAA championship. Everybody around me was capturing what was going on, and I anticipated that awning collapsing. I won College Photographer of the Year. The kids were fine. But it was an interesting lesson. It is a hard one to explain, but the lesson here is that a portrait is not made in the camera. It's actually made on either side. It's the storyteller and the story. And it was an amazing story about this World War II veteran who had come back with his wife, and I wanted to capture that story. You also, when you're telling a story, sometimes you have only one image to tell the story. And these were about 2 kids who lived in a housing project and couldn't go out and play because it was too dangerous. I had one shot to show that picture. And I've thought about sometimes you have one chance to tell people a story. But the other part of telling a story is there's always an emotional side. And so if you're telling a story, look for those emotions. It was just a car crash I was covering, but there clearly was an emotional side to being in a car crash. Now, when I started shooting sports, it was tough. I didn't really know a lot about baseball, and I took a lot of bad pictures. And finally, I learned that if you got to know the game really well, then you can take a better picture. So this one was the Kansas City Royals and the Texas Rangers turning a double play. Robert Capa said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And it's true. And maybe your first 10,000 ideas are your worst. And if you give up, then you won't find that great idea. But if you keep working, sometimes that great photo comes. And we also learned that if your pictures aren't good enough, maybe you're not close enough. Now, that could mean a longer lens, or just getting closer to your story or your subject, or finding out more information about what you want to tell that story about. The other thing is that you don't take a photograph, you make it. Not every great idea is going to present itself and say, hey, guess what, here's a great idea. Sometimes you have to make those things happen. You have to look around a situation. Probably a lot of people drove by this kid playing basketball. But not every moment is an exciting one, a riot in Michigan or something that's going to happen. Sometimes it's just the simple moments. This is my daughter catching some snowflakes on her tongue, ran in the Chicago Tribune recently. And it's just those simple things that really capture our attention. I also learned that you need to focus on one thing and not everything. It's kind of the Steve Jobs idea. But it's the idea that most people take landscape photos, shoot everything, and they want to capture everything in the photo. And sometimes the better picture is if you focus on one thing. We also learned that you need to have a different perspective than what everyone else has. So if people are all shooting pictures right here, climb up on something, look down, look up, show a different perspective. No one else who I was with on this day got that photo. Nobody looked up. Finally, chance prepared mind. There's a little bit of luck that this amazing bird flew by these icebergs or this glacier. And when you can take advantage of chance, of luck, if you're prepared, if you do everything you need to do when luck happens. Finally, if you're out there shooting, things will happen for you. And if you're not out there, you'll just hear about it. These were the things that I think about that I've learned while I was a photojournalist and over the years. And hopefully these ideas will teach you that you should be prepared. And hopefully I've inspired you today.